Convicted killer Sandile Mantsoe maintains that he did not murder Karabo Mokoena and that he was a positive influence on her life, rather. Mantsoe was found guilty of the murder of his 22-year-old girlfriend by the High Court in Johannesburg today.
Her body was found dumped in a veld in Johannesburg last year. The court dismissed Mantsoe's version of events as fabricated, painting him as an unreliable witness. He insists that Karabo committed suicide. The court also found Mantsoe guilty of abusing his girlfriend in addition to murdering her.
The judge stated that Mantsoe then tried to conceal her death by burning her body. The family is now pinning its hope on a jail term that will restore their faith in the justice system. Sentencing is expected to be handed down on Thursday. Well, as you heard there, it was almost a year ago that the country heard about the shocking story of this young woman who was murdered by her boyfriend. It was an allegation then. Today it's been confirmed. And the justice, was served, people will say, for Karabo Mokoena as Sandile Mantsoe left the dock a convicted criminal. Now, only a few hours before this verdict, a female student at MUT was found killed, allegedly also by her boyfriend. Stats SA says that 1 in 5 women experience physical violence in their lives. Joining us now on the line is gender violence specialist Lisa Vetten. Lisa, good evening to you. Let's just start with how quickly this case was handled. Some will interpret it as a step forward as far as justice for victims and their families. But of course, it all hinges on the defense that was given by Mantsoe, which really some might also interpret as a brazen appeals in the system, because he didn't offer a defense, did he?
No, he didn't. And in fact, his defense seems to consist entirely of trying to besmirch Karabo Mokoena's character, as well as to attack her family. So it's very clear that he does not in any way take responsibility for his actions. And what is quite, and perhaps would suggest a little bit of not being in touch with reality, that he seemed to be under the impression that people would share his perceptions of the matter. I mean, that's the one option. The other is that he actually knows that his version is very flimsy and didn't want to put himself under cross-examination, where he'd have to be tested on the extravagant lies that he told.
One of the things we need to have a conversation about is that, of course, many people have welcomed how swiftly this matter was resolved in less than a year. Is that a positive development, or have we set the bar so low in cases like this that is even something to celebrate?
Well, I think for the sake of the family, it is really important that this case was settled quickly and that they obtain justice. My concern is that I think when we have high-profile cases, it often places a certain amount of pressure on the police and the prosecuting authority to wrap up the case quickly. That is not always the reality for cases which don't enjoy such high profile and where the victim or the accused are not well known. So those cases continue to take a very long time, while we might be left with the impression that actually they're going fairly quickly.
Lisa, we've heard particularly gruesome details that emerged in the trial. We have now these catchphrases that we use in our conversations. We talk about toxic masculinity, gender-based violence. We've got campaigns, there's women's month, etc., etc. Yet we're back here every now and again. The stats I mentioned earlier in my introduction from Stats SA about the exposure to violence that many South African women face in their lifetimes. Why does it seem that so little is changing?
I think it's because these are very difficult problems to address, and I think sometimes we overestimate the value of harsh sentencing or somebody being found guilty. I think if you talk to men who kill their female partners, and Sandile Mantsoe is an ideal example, they often don't think that they are abusive. They often think that their violence is justified, and they often think that they're the ones who are the victims, and that the female partners have pushed them to the violence, or that they deserve the violence. So, and often I think a fair number of them come out of histories of their own violence and abuse. And I think simplified messages where we say, don't turn away, stop abuse, speak out now, are really not going to address those sorts of deep-seated problems. And some of the things we need to really be thinking about is making more services available, for example, especially to assist boys who have who are in a situation where they're observing their mothers being abused or are themselves being abused. Because if we don't address that violence while they're young, there's a very good likelihood that they may themselves grow up to be perpetrators.
So you talk about sentencing and, of course, even getting a conviction in a case like this. We're running a Twitter poll this evening, and I'm going to put you on the spot in a way and ask you the question, will this conviction serve as a deterrent to would-be abusers who may want to do the same?
You know, it may deter some, but I think, again, the point is that if you have an abusive individual who doesn't think he is like Sandile Mantsoe, thinks that Sandile Mantsoe is a monster, but his behavior is perfectly fine, then that sentence won't have any kind of deterrent effect on him because he doesn't see himself as being like Sandile Mantsoe. So I think, you know, heavy sentencing is there more to serve a much more symbolic purpose of justice. It doesn't always serve as deterrent.
So, I mean, as far as sentencing is concerned, we're expecting that later in the week. It's an open and shut case. We're looking at a minimum of 15 years. That on its own could be a tough message, surely.
I think it is an important message, and we may even be looking at a life sentence because the judge did use the words premeditated murder. And the minimum sentence in cases of premeditated murder where there are no substantial and compelling circumstances is life. And if we take into account the fact that Sandile Mantsoe has lied consistently, continues to maintain his innocence, that's not going to create a very good impression at all on the court.
So if we take a step, I suppose, in a broader sense, Lisa, in terms of dealing with this issue, you've mentioned a number of reasons why it continues to be a scourge in this country. Who should lead the fight against this type of thing? Who should be the moral voice, the person who signals a way forward for the society at large?
I think we need a range of different voices. Because I think if we look at who people identify with, they identify with a range of different kinds of people. So in some instances, a voice from a religious sector could be powerful. But I mean, for those who have no religious beliefs or persuasion, that message is going to be immaterial. So I mean, I think we need to look at lots of different voices from very many different sectors of society. And we also need to look at different messages. You know, for those men who already think that violence is wrong, saying it's wrong is great, but it's preaching to the converted, really. So I think what we would really be needing to look at, as I was suggesting, is possibly those who have abused standing up and saying, this is why I no longer abuse, and this is what I did in order to change my behavior. What I think is also really, really important are men's family and friends. Too often they sit by silently when they observe this, or they share the same kinds of beliefs and will encourage and even reinforce this kind of conduct, saying, yes, how could you never let a woman speak to you like that? You must remind her who's in charge in the household. And so I think we need to really encourage family and friends to play an important role in challenging this kind of behavior and also trying to suggest to their friend or brother or father, you can't behave like this. It's not acceptable. You need to learn to behave differently.
Indeed, Lisa Vetten, their gender activist. We need to create a different culture around how all of this is done. I suppose the hashtag #NotInMyName could feature prominently in that.